like when she had to take a hard test at school or when she had an appointment at the dentist's office to tighten her braces. She tucked her legs in tighter against her body. She didn't care that the rubber on the bottom of her running shoes dug into the back of her legs. The slight discomfort took her mind off the fact that her mother wasn't leaving the bedroom. Had she seen the red stain on the shirt? Why had Jacob's hands been covered in blood? Brook had been so scared when she'd caught sight of her brother staring blankly down at his fingers, but his face had twisted into a mask of rage when she'd asked if he was all right. He hardly ever yelled at her, and it was so unlike him to get so mad. She'd run away from the kitchen as fast as she could, wanting only to reach the safety of the bay window in her room. Only Brook didn't feel safe anymore. Not in her bedroom, not in the house, and not around her brother. "Do you have all your school supplies organized for tomorrow?" her mother asked, tossing the shirt into the hamper. Relief poured through Brook over the fact that her mom hadn't asked about the blood on the sleeve. It was the spot where her brother had grabbed her by the arm as she was trying to pass him in the kitchen. "Don't forget to put those erasers we finally found at the pharmacy into your new pencil case." "I won't," Brook reassured her, tossing a forced smile her mother's way. Brook was finally able to swallow now that her mother wasn't asking any more questions about Jacob. She'd mentioned that he had left his bike in the driveway. He might have simply wrecked it on his way back from the basketball courts, falling onto his hands and getting a bad case of road rash. Maybe he'd been embarrassed when he'd fallen off his bike. Brook got that way sometimes, too. Her mother constantly reassured her that she'd get over her awkward stage soon enough. Falling off his bike would certainly explain why he had so much blood on his hands. Brook's mother smiled back at her before she walked out of the room, probably thinking about what she was going to make for dinner. Brook didn't like to keep things from her parents, but Jacob had threatened to tell them about the time that she'd snuck down to the creek all by herself if she didn't keep quiet about what had happened in the kitchen. Had Jacob gone to see the girl who he liked from school? Their parents didn't know that he had been messing around with Pamela Murray, but Brook had heard him on the phone asking if she wanted to go to the drive-in movie this weekend. She lived on a gravel road, so maybe his tires had lost traction and he'd ended up on the ground. Little by little, Brook finally relaxed after thinking about Jacob's bike lying in the middle of the driveway. It made sense that he would be bleeding if he fell onto a cement surface or crashed on a gravel road. He must have simply overreacted due to all the adrenaline running through his system when she saw him. He probably didn't want her to say anything to their parents that could get him grounded over the weekend. "Brook." She dropped the book that she was supposed to be reading. It landed with a thud against the soft carpeted floor after bouncing off her leg, most likely creasing one of the pages. Sally was going to be mad. Brook finally looked up to find that Jacob was standing in the doorway, wearing different clothes from when she'd last seen him in the kitchen. His wavy brown hair was slicked back, and she could tell that he'd taken a shower to clean up. He wasn't smiling. Brook couldn't stop her gaze from slowly lowering to his hands. She searched for any kind of scratch or cut, but there was none to be found. "I didn't tell Mom," Brook said quickly, shaking her head back and forth hastily so that he would believe her. She didn't want to get grounded either. Alice Jacobson's birthday party was this weekend, and both of her best friends were going to be there. "I swear, pinky swear." "Good." Jacob continued to stand in the doorway, as if he wanted to say more, but they just stared at each other in silence. It was like he didn't believe she could keep a secret. Not one this big. She could, though. Brook hadn't told their parents about Pamela, or that Jacob had been sneaking out of the house at least 2 nights a week for the past few months. She was honestly surprised that he hadn't gotten caught yet.